Does this rock at last hold the answer to the subject of life? The NASA rover Perseverance has found a mysterious rock on Mars that shows the red planet could for sure have supported extraterrestrial life. The stone is enhanced with some dark line tracks that contain iron and phosphorus. As it turns out, such leopard spots on Earth are typically created by microorganisms. So, have we at last found the microbial inhabitants of Mars? What conclusions can be drawn from this intriguing discovery? And could our neighboring planets actually be hiding extraterrestrial life forms? Well, incredibly, the possibilities of this are not at all terrible. Scientists have recently found a massive reservoir of liquid water beneath Mars, which, in their assessment, could indicate a life-friendly world. What do Albert Einstein's theory of relativity and a thrilling find on Mars have in common? That's right, in both cases it's Einstein, a discovery that has the scientific world holding its breath. But all jokes aside, what Perseverance found on the surface of Mars a couple of months ago does indeed have the potential to make it into the cosmic history books. The rover has been on Mars since February 18, 2021, where it is taking a close look at the landscape and rocks of the Jezero crater. And of course, this isn't just any randomly chosen landing and research site, but an area of nearly 50 kilometers in size, which was shaped by an asteroid impact in the distant past. Up until 3.8 billion years ago, it still contained a fully mature lake with feeders. It is now undisputed that cool liquid water once sloshed in abundance on the red planet. But the question of where all the Martian water has gone over time is somewhat more questionable. Well, that is, if it has vanished by any means. In fact, a new study has concluded that the water has not literally vanished, like a ghost, but has only moved underground. But let's delve into that later. While Perseverance is examining the former river delta in the Jezero crater, it's expected to collect material samples for transport back to Earth, on one hand, and on the other hand, look for potential traces of past Martian life. And as NASA announced in July of this year, the rover might have hit the jackpot. Perseverance came across a very special rock formation on the northern edge of the old river valley of Nida, which had never been seen before on Mars. More specifically, the object of interest is a rock about 1 meter long and 60 centimeters wide, which scientists named Shava Falls. This rock stands out with some tail-like tracks. This is the case with the wide white sulfate veins, between which a much darker reddish material sleeps, indicating the presence of hematite. This is actually quite common in and of itself, as iron oxide minerals are fairly unremarkable on Mars. However, this expressly does not apply to the mini spots, a couple of millimeters in size, that are embedded in the dark hematite deposits. And while the small spots appear as irregularly shaped dirty white dots, they are surrounded by rings of dark material, the most perplexing, complex, and possibly significant rock. Subsequent examinations have shown that the dark rings contain iron and phosphate. What might sound to us simple humans like just a boring list of geological items has the scientists absolutely excited. Ken Farley of the California Institute of Technology emphasizes that Shava Falls represents nothing less than the first definitive proof of organic material on Mars. But that's not all. Farley also describes the lump as the most cryptic, complex, and possibly most significant rock Perseverance has analyzed so far. This is for the simple yet exciting reason that the colored leopard spots could indicate chemical reactions that microbial life forms use as an energy source. The spectrometer examinations showed that the spots and their surrounding elements contain organic carbon compounds. And along with the phosphates and the iron, they are much more suggestive of those traces that are often related to microbial activity on Earth. Specifically, the earthly spot makers are often microorganisms that have, when fossilized, left their remnants in the subsurface. Iron and phosphate are commonly produced when microorganisms reduce iron oxide. And as mentioned, Shava Falls was found in a climate that was much wetter billions of years ago, and therefore, may have provided the best conditions for microbial life to thrive. But what does the discovery of the rock mean? In contrast, as Perseverance now answers what is arguably mankind's oldest question, whether Earth is actually the only celestial body in the universe to have produced life, with a resounding no. Well, not exactly, because the reality also includes the fact that, while organic molecules on Earth often come from microorganisms, they can also be formed through geochemical, abiotic means that don't require the involvement of living things. For example, we know of such compounds being formed in the context of volcanic activity, and if the material from Shava Falls was also heated by magma, we would need to quickly rule out the possibility of tiny Martian inhabitants. In fact, a grain of the mineral olivine, which is considered a solid component of magma, has even been identified in the rock in question. But it remains complicated, because the simple fact that there was once volcanism in this region doesn't mean that the leopard spots couldn't have come from microorganisms. The secret Martian Sea, as we can see, still holds many strange mysteries for us. And sadly, this won't change much in the near future. That's because the researchers point out that they have largely exhausted their remote sensing measures. In the end, Perseverance has already bombarded the rock with lasers and X-rays, and shot it constantly from every possible angle to understand the mysteries the Martian rock truly holds. Scientists need to study it up close, and that is only possible once the significant tests have been returned to our blue home planet. But when the day of return transport comes, specialists will be able to use high-precision scientific instruments to determine whether we are truly dealing with the fossilized work of Martian microorganisms, or just the result of volcanic activity. And incredibly, it might actually be that Mars has in fact not stopped volcanic activity, according to seismic data from the Mars Knowledge Mission has unequivocally recommended that magma chambers should still exist inside the red planet. But this is neither the only nor the most exciting mystery that Mars Knowledge has revealed beneath the surface of our planetary neighbor. The test data also shows that a colossal fluid water reservoir is concealed at a depth of 11 kilometers. And by colossal, we really mean enormous. According to the specialists, the amount of secret water would be enough to form a planet-spanning sea, 1 to 2 kilometers deep. As mentioned briefly before, the question of where the water of the red planet has vanished to is perhaps one of the greatest mysteries of current Mars research. Until around a few years ago, there were still rivers, lakes, and even a vast ocean there. But then, a dramatic climate change sealed the life-supporting portion of Mars, and the waters vanished from the ruddy, gleaming surface. The polar ice caps and the water ice in the mid-latitudes are not nearly large enough to store all the water from the ancient Martian Ocean. Many scientists have long believed that most of the water simply vanished into space. After all, it should have been easy for the solar wind to strip parts of the atmosphere, and consequently, the cool water into space due to the lack of a magnetic field. However, Vashon Wright's team at the University of California in San Diego has reached the conclusion that water loss can also potentially be explained in another way. The water might not have vanished at all, but rather saturated the depths of the Martian exterior. To test this intriguing hypothesis, the specialists assessed data from Mars tremors gathered by Mars InSight in the Elysium region between 2018 and 2022. In fact, the seismological data had already revealed that there is barely any water in the Martian exterior at the corresponding landing site, but only down to a depth of about 300 meters. However, Wright and his associates literally looked further underground and realized that beneath the dry, cold surface of the planet, there is indeed a trickling mystery. Could Mars still be home to life? On one hand, the studies showed that the Martian core covering is indeed permeable and sprinkled with pits, as previously expected. On the other hand, the seismic data suggests that these fine cracks and holes are filled with liquid water. In fact, these natural water tanks are probably going to make up around 177% of the rock there. In other words, the gathered data can best be explained by the fact that the planet's core outer layer contains water in abundance. For the sake of clarification, it should be mentioned that this is only the case if the research results are representative, not just for the area of the Mars test, but also for the rest of the planet. But if this is true, and that's the intriguing part, the red planet could have a massive groundwater reservoir stored in its deep stone pores. Considering that the estimated amount of water in this case is enough to flood the entire planet to a depth of 1 to 2 kilometers. Another thrilling question arises. Could extraterrestrial life forms be found in the underground water of Mars? Well, the specialists answer this question with a simple but charming same difference either way. After all, we shouldn't forget that even on Earth, there are creatures that can withstand even the most extreme conditions, like permanent darkness and an absence of oxygen. Michael Manga from the University of Berkeley, who was involved in the study as a co-author, can be quoted as follows: "Since water is essential for life as we know it, I don't see why the underground reservoir of Mars shouldn't also be a life-supporting environment. While we have yet to find any evidence of life on Mars, we now at least have a place that could in principle support life. And we now have a place for you that would allow you to never miss another video from us again. With a single click, press the subscribe button now to stay up to date. We'll see you soon."